So good morning and grand rising.
Good morning.
So first I want to thank Reverend Elzia for inviting me to be here, and I want to thank all of you for being here as well, because that's how the world changes. So I appreciate you. When Alice sent me the information for the talk, I wanted to come up with some sort of an analogy that gets us to the feeling that I want us to look at today. So the title is Reclaiming One's Center. So the analogy that I came up with is actually from my life, and it was from around the age of like 12 or 13. My scout troop that I was in, we went for a day trip, cross-country skiing, Happy Jack Recreation Area up in Southeast Wyoming. It's just a beautiful day. So we get there, we get all of our gear on, we have our day packs and our lunch, and we all take off. Shortly thereafter, a couple of us decide we want to kind of adventure on our own. And so we veer off and we go about our days, lovely, sitting around, skiing around, having lunch. And at some point, we notice like there's a cloud coming in. It's starting to get a little chillier. My toes are starting to get a little cold and my fingers are starting to hurt. And I'm like, I think this is, we should probably be getting back. We weren't paying attention to time, nothing. And so we decide we need to go back. Which way? And we have no idea which way. We're kind of like looking around, and we lost all the tracks. We lost all the people. We recognize that we haven't seen anybody from our troop for hours. We're lost. Oh no. And so we kind of agree on one direction to go. Now we're 13-year-olds, so none of us want to admit that we're scared. But as it's starting to get darker, the clouds are getting bigger, the sun starts to go down, and I'm really getting cold. And how I knew I was scared is because things started going through my head. And one of them was, I know when you freeze to death, you don't just freeze to death. It happens when you get tired, and then you sit down for a little while, and then you just fall asleep. That's what's going through my head, and that's how I knew, I'm a little scared here. But I'm not wanting to admit it. Don't want to panic. But anyway, we keep heading in the direction we think we're supposed to go in, and finally we run into a barbed wire fence. And so, we're in Colorado, so I'm guessing there's a lot of us that are familiar with outdooring. And the saying is, when you get lost, you find a stream or a road or a path or a fence, something like that, and then you follow it. Eventually, you're going to run into something. So again, we kind of agreed, I think it's that way. We start moving along the fence, and eventually, we get up to the top of the hill. There's the parking lot. We could see the cars. And it was just this feeling of relief. I wouldn't have admitted it back then, but I was a little fearful. That feeling of relief in that moment of just I'm going to be okay. Back home in Cheyenne, Wyoming, there might have been things going on in my life that weren't ideal. But in that one moment, everything was glorious. Everything was just perfect. That's the feeling of getting back into our center that today's theme is all about. There's that feeling. So when the world out here is weighing us down, when it's loud, when it's divisive and angry, when I get activated myself, that's the time to reclaim that center. The first time that I heard this kind of concept was from Eckhart Tolle, who wrote The Power of Now. And he was talking about the same idea that in this now moment, if you're going within, no matter what's going on, can you tell yourself that for right now, everything's okay? I'm activated. There's stuff going on in the world that I want to go speak to. I want to, make change. There's stuff going on in my own family life that needs change, that needs improvement or growth. But if I can sit down and be still in this one moment, all of that stuff, it dissipates for just a little while. It's like a little respite that we can just be okay. So that's from Eckhart Tolle, who, his claim to fame happened around 1997 or so. But if Diego will pull up the next slide, this is Ernest Holmes. Okay, there it is. No matter how turbulent the waves may be on the ocean of your experience, beneath there is a changeless peace. And that's from the founder of this philosophy, Ernest Holmes, from his radio show in 1960-ish. I found the quote on a website called Spiritual Passages. So if you're not familiar with the website and you New Thought quotes and all sorts, any philosophy, all philosophies, this guy, Scott Aubrey's got a wonderful website. So anyway, that's Ernest Holmes. A long time before Eckhart Tolle is saying the exact same thing. The surface of the ocean, our outdoor life, there's the waves. But within, do you all know what I'm talking about? You know that. You've touched that place, feel it within. That is a temporary relief that we can go to at any time. Now, one thing that I always have to point out is not everybody's the same. And at different times in your life, one philosophy or one practice might work better than another. But I never want to minimize anybody that's experienced trauma or that's in the midst of trauma or PTSD, people that go through amazingly challenging life situations. I never want to minimize that. And I don't want to what's the word? Trite or downplay people's challenges because it's a real thing. And at the same time, I still want to encourage myself. It was perfect that this was the talk that came up because this is right where I'm at right now. To play with it, to explore and to look within and just lean into that presence. I watched last week, Reverend Elzia was talking about intuition. And intuition is absolutely one of our tools. He brought up, Reverend Elzia did, that when the big challenges come up in life and what challenges we're experiencing collectively, we might need more than just our five senses to navigate through it. And how many people, that sixth sense might be the last place that we go to. We're so caught up in our five senses that we're forgetting maybe one of our best qualities and our best sources of strength, of inspiration, of power. So in the science of mind, as people that have been here for a while, we know that everything begins in thought. It begins in mind. Everything that was created, everything that's man-made, absolutely. It was somebody's idea first. And so what the thoughts that we hold, it's a vibration. Our thoughts don't create, but our thoughts do get us into a place of feeling, of sensing. So when you are in a vibration that is less than, if you're in a vibration that is feeling the animosity from the world or feeling stressed, if you're feeling anger towards someone else, unconsciously we create from that place. And so the energy that we're putting out is less likely to be helpful or conducive to us and more likely to cause us to unintentionally sabotage ourselves. It's subtle, but it happens. So if our thoughts are creating our experience of the reality, which they do through our perception and the stories we tell ourselves, if we're letting what is going on out there influencing our thoughts, we've got it backwards. And that's where I find myself all the time. And it seems appropriate because it seems pressing. There's a lot of issues in the world that, depending on where you are, what strikes you. Like I never want to bring up politics, but I can say that no matter where you're at on the political spectrum, there's something in your life, something in the world right now that you don't like, or maybe that's causing fear. And so the risk here is knowing that thought creates our reality. Is instead of us being intentional with what we hold within and then going forward in the world with that, what's happening out there is affecting our inner. So we've given up that control and we're always playing survival mode. We're always in catch up. So to remember that feeling within, like when I was lost and all of a sudden, right now, everything is absolutely okay. And then as soon as I can dissipate that, then I feel better. So going back into like about 2009, before I found this philosophy, I was in a bit of a struggle. And but helped pull me out. It was right before I found the Science of Mind, and it was because of this author that I did. And it was Wayne Dyer. And I'll just divulge. At that point, I was about 16 months alcohol-free. Before that, I had challenges in my life, problems that I caused. So at this point, in 16 months of clean living, I felt like I should be on cloud nine. I felt like I should be just happy, everything. I'm not messing things up anymore because of that. There's still challenges, but why aren't I happy? And not even just not happy. I'm at like my lowest point, one of my lowest points in my life. And found an old Wayne Dyer book, was part of a whole combination of things that came together that pulled me out of that slump. But it was Wayne Dyer in the book Real Magic, and he said, if your life is not ideal, the number one most important thing to do is to start a meditation program. And that's stuck with me ever since then. So if Diego will pull up the next slide. One of Ernest Holmes' favorite teachers, he referred to him as the master teacher, was Jesus. And he said this, but seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. So all those things out in the world that we want to fix and change, or we want to acquire, or whatever it is that we want to do, seek that place within first. And when you're good here, then those things that are out there, they're already yours. They come to you as you need them. And you're not longing for something that you don't have. You're recognizing what you do have. Now, that kingdom, seek the kingdom and his glory. In Centers for Spiritual Living, I know like the G word, God, can throw a lot of people off. Some people resonate with it and some don't. So it doesn't matter what we call it. It's just the kingdom of heaven is simply a state of mind. We are all consciousness. We are conscious beings. And that is that thought that we stem out of. And so by seeking as frequently as we can that place, we're visiting the place of heaven within. And when we do that, everything out here gets a little softer. It's a little easier to navigate. And we become more empowered to do those things that we want to do, where we feel like we're called to take action. If we're constantly in that survival mode, we're showing up in places that frenetic energy within us, we find it where we go. Have you noticed that? For this last little piece, I know Reverend Elzia loves the call to action. And so my call to action today, if Diego will pull up that final slide. Do you remember the old texting? This BRB was like one of the originals. It's like the OG texts that I had to look it up because I knew what it meant to me, but you never know, as texting lingo evolves, I might say something that has evolved into something totally different. I remember the first time in Florida driving down the street and I saw a WTF sticker on the back of a car. And I was like, on the car? And I was like, oh, welcome to Florida. John knows. So anyway, BRB, it was like from the old T9 days. And I thought that this would be a good kind of mnemonic to be our call to action. When we find ourselves activated, find ourselves upset, the example I want to use, because it happened yesterday, is with my own children. It was a busy day yesterday. It was yesterday. All kinds of stuff. Dog needed groomed. My kids needed running around because they're kids. Lots of stuff going on. At some point, though, I found myself kind of overwhelmed. And I didn't think about it. I knew I was. But I didn't think about it until I got overly activated or overly, irritated at my children, because whatever they were doing was so outrageous that it shook my cool. And I noticed as I was speaking to them in a way that I wouldn't like to, like, that's my cue. I need to BRB. I'll be right back. So when we see that in the world, when you find yourself like just in a place of maybe fear or overwhelm, or just in a place when you're out of alignment. And you can even do this before you go into a better place or into a place of something that you want to do well. Just be right back. So the first step is to step away from the noise, step away, just sit down, breathe. The word meditation throws a lot of people off. It doesn't need a label. We're just sitting. Just sit and breathe and be. That's that first part of be right back, just be. And then feel into that place of like, right now, everything's okay. Now, the world around me could be chaotic. As long as I'm not in physical danger at this moment, I know that I am okay. And so then we get to the R, we right ourselves. So that's all we're doing. We're just squaring ourselves up. We're aligning with that deeper part of ourselves and just feeling it and taking as long as it takes until sometimes it's a physical reaction that you're trying to not escape from, but you're trying to work through. Sometimes it's just a mental thing, but staying in that place just long enough till you feel that little twist. Kind of like seeing those cars in the parking lot. There's that moment where you're like, and I've found myself doing that a couple times recently to where like I was having a physical reaction of anxiety, of muscle twitches, and like, oh my God. So combining, that going within, if you're familiar with box breathing or other breath techniques, it's a powerful combination. So I won't go into it, but I recommend looking up box breathing. But just getting in yourself, into your state and righting yourself with that one presence. And then you go back. Then you're back into the world. But now you're coming from a deeper place, a place that's more aligned. You're more present, you're more focused, and you're more empowered. That is what's there at the center of ourselves. So we'll just BRB. So with that, if we'll just take it within for just a moment, I just invite you to get comfortable into your space. However you like to relax into the now moment. And I bring our attention to whatever you see as something bigger than yourself. Something bigger. Maybe it's the universe. Maybe you like the idea of a creator. Maybe it's nature. It's all one consciousness, one mind. Everything that exists is this one thing. When you break it all down to the energy, to the thought that we are all truly one. So as I open up to this, I invite each and every person to focus on your heart center. Imagine yourself opening up and imagine that light of the divine pouring in, that in this now moment, right now, everything is okay. This is the part of us that is eternal and infinite. We have our thinking, talking human self, and behind it, we have that deeper presence that's always there. And it's the same presence in me, that's the same presence in you, the same presence in every living thing and every non-living thing. There's only that one, what I call love with a capital L. It's the force of the universe, that life force energy that connects, inspires, moves, grows, expands, and inspires. So as we tap into that energy is always there with us. May it make itself more clear. May we remember to sit with it, to be with it, to lean into it in our times of distress so that we can go back into the world with that new sense of empowerment that comes from within, that one infinite divine love. So I affirm and avow with these words that right now this energy is powerful. This energy is with everyone hearing these words. This energy is with everyone on their own unique individual paths, that we're all here expanding, shifting together. As we talk about a shift in consciousness, this is where it begins. It begins within each and every single individual. As we make a shift to do one thing out of our norm, we literally improve the world. So in gratitude for all that is, gratitude for each and every person on their path who recognizes that there is something bigger, and all those who are here to help us find our way. I say thank you for it all. I say thank you for the creative mechanism of this one universe that takes our thoughts, our words, and our intentions and makes it into our reality. I say thank you for that. And I say thank you for the inspiration, the words, the feelings that come from the infinite that lift us up one at a time. And affirming that that is so, that this world is evolving into that place that works for everyone. I say thank you, and I let these words go knowing it's already done in the mind of spirit, and so it is. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
Thank you.